Welcome to STEM Stories with Mr. Ewing. Welcome to part 8 of our work on understanding and working with our brain. And we're going to talk today about your brain project, taking everything that we've learned in the last 7 videos and understanding and put to practice how to work with our brain. So, in order to do that, we're going to talk about something called Wataba. And you're probably thinking, Wataba? What is Wataba, Mr. Ewing? I've never heard of that before. You haven't mentioned it in any of your videos. What could this Wataba be? Well, doesn't it sound like something you would have heard in The Lion King? Like, oh, Wataba! That's not what it is. Wataba is actually an acronym for what you think about, you bring about. And what does that mean? What you think about, you bring about. Take a few minutes and think about what that might mean for you. What does Wataba mean? What you think about, you bring about. And how do you think that applies to you? Now, before we get into actually what it means, I had the pleasure of listening to a TED Talk, and it's like a grown-up classroom lesson. It's sort of like what we do right now with virtual learning. You have your educator up in front in the video. You get to listen to it. You learn some things. And this is a Blaine Oaklers. And he actually was talking about something called Wataba. And I thought, well, this makes complete sense for me. I need to let my students know about this as well. And it starts out with something called RAS, Reticular Activating System. Now, I know that sounds super fancy, but I'm going to break it down for you so that you understand that you actually do this. It's already something in your system. So RAS is actually that network of neurons, in our head that we've talked about with the myelin sheaths, are located in your brainstem back here that project to the hypothalamus to mediate your behavior. So that system of neurons actually sends messages to your hypothalamus to actually help you control or change or mediate. That means balance your behavior. So what does that mean for you? Well, the structure is believed to play a role in many functions, including your wakefulness, that's us right now because we're awake, your sleep, your attention, being able to focus on what you're doing. I love when I hear a chime. Behavioral modification, that means how do we modify, control our own behavior, and how do we filter out or filter in information. That RES has a huge role in our brain, but the cool thing is we can actually change and control it. So the RES, or the Reticular Activating System, filters incoming information and directs you to pay attention to some things while disregarding others. So let's see, have you ever been in the classroom and you're really deep in a project and you're really focusing really hard, and there's sirens and all this stuff going on outside of school, or maybe noise coming in from the hallway or the next classroom, but you're so focused on the work that you're doing that you barely even notice that around you. That's your reticular activating system and working for you. You've actually developed myelin in your brain that actually helps you control all that outside information. So you're filtering out the noise so that you can focus on filtering in what you're learning. So how does that apply to Wataba? What we think about, you bring about. Well, think back to The Lion King, and it's not what they used in The Lion King, but it's sort of what is happening here. If you think about that image, you are holding up your goals. We all have goals in life, whether it's to get to school on time, or I'm going to learn something new in math, or I need to learn how to throw a basketball and get it into the hoop, or swish it so it doesn't hit the rim, or whatever your goals are. We all set goals, but there's a way to actually achieve our goals. And Wataba is actually going to play into that. So habits change into character. That's really kind of an interesting saying. What's a habit? And what's character? and how do habits change into characters. Take a few minutes. I'd love for you to write down a habit that you have. I'd love for you to write down a couple character traits, things that make you you, and see if you think that your habits are connected to your character. Love to hear what you come up with. Well, to form a habit, and let's going to start here. In order to get to Watava and to get our RAS working really well, a habit takes 18 to 200 days to form. We can't create a habit in one day. Doing something once isn't a habit. Doing something repetitively is a habit. Like getting up every morning and brushing your teeth. The first time you do it, it's not a habit. Second time you do it, it's not a habit. After a while, it becomes a habit because you don't even think about doing it. You get up and you automatically go and brush your teeth. Hopefully that's a habit that you've developed. Now that becomes character because your character now is concerned with good health. So you actually turned a habit into a character trait, but it takes 18 to 200 days, and that's a lot. So I'm going to break it down to simplify. Psychology Today, a big organization, actually a magazine of psychologists, and they talk a lot of things about psychology, how our brain works. And they say it takes about 66 days to form a new habit. That means something that happens without us actually thinking about it anymore. That is what we call a habit. So 66 days. So our project is going to take an old habit and create a new habit, or create a new habit. Sometimes we don't have old habits yet because we haven't developed those, but we can change old habits to new habits, or we can get rid of old habits by creating new habits. So we're going to focus on creating a new habit as our project. Now think back to Watava and the Lion King. You need to figure out what your goal is. So take a few minutes, write down maybe 5 goals that you have. Try to write 5. 5 things that you would like to change or do differently or do new. And think about it. I would love for you to really focus on something about learning or something about school. So maybe when you're frustrated, you go for a run out of the classroom. Maybe that's a habit that you want to change. Or maybe you want to be able to focus yourself before you start learning. Or maybe you want to release those dopamine and oxytocin hormones in your brain before you start learning. Or maybe you want to learn how to push through frustration. Whatever it is, come up with your goals and write those down. Now, I love this quote from Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Now, I changed it a little bit because I want to emphasize that I warn you not to underestimate your powers. And here he says my powers, but I want it to be about you. Do not underestimate the power that you have to create a habit and to make change in your life, positive change in your life. Because habits actually can do 2 things. A habit can actually create something positive in your life, or a habit can actually make something negative happen in your life. It all depends on the habit that you develop. And if you have negative things in your life, figure out a habit that will change it into a positive thing. So don't underestimate what you can do. So you actually have the power to make change. So how are we going to do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to develop a project. And what do you need? You need very little. You actually can do this without the project that we're going to do, but I think this actually might help you. And at the end, I'll give you some ideas to come up with a different way. So all you need is a change you want to make. What is the habit you're going to do? I need you to give me 66 days. All right, they're free. You can give them away. You need to make 66 slips of colored paper. If you don't have colored paper, use white paper. But you need to have something that you can write on, and then I need you to provide your brain. So basically, the only thing that might cost you a little bit, and if you ask people, I bet you can get this for free, is the colored paper or white paper to make 66 slips. And you just got to cut them into slips. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to do any particular width. They can be wide, they can be skinny, they can be all different widths. And you're going to make a chain. Remember making, I think a lot of times in school, we'll make a 100-day chain to count down the first 100 days of school. or sometimes at the end of the school year, we'll make a chain so we can count down the last 30 days of school. But you're going to make a chain. But before you do that, on each one of these chains, you're going to write the habit that you want to develop it. So maybe it's, I'm going to take 5 deep breaths before I start to learn anything. And that's going to be what you write on each one of these 66 pieces of paper. I know it's going to take a little time. Hey, ask someone for help. Ask your mom, dad, sister, grandma, someone around, your babysitter. Ask someone for help. But it'd be better if you do it, because each time you write it, you're actually creating some myelin in your brain and making it permanent. So create that, create a big long line. Now, remember I said you have the power to make change. And this is how you're going to do it. You're going to take your chain. You're going to put it somewhere. Maybe it's in your bedroom. It's in the bathroom. It's by the door before you leave. You know what? Talk to your teacher and ask if you could do this as a class project. Each person creating their own 66 link chain. Each day, you're going to take a chain off and you're going to think about that change in habit that you're going to do. And then during the day, you're going to take a moment and make that habit become reality. So like I said, if it's taking 5 or 10 deep breaths before you start to learn something new each day in your classroom, and you can let your teacher know about this, that you're going to go and do your breathing exercise, and then you're going to get to work. Or whatever that habit is going to be, that's what you're going to do for 66 days. And I want to hear from you the habit that you're going to change. And you know what? If you want, keep a journal. Write down every day how you're feeling about it, how you feel like it's affecting or changing your life. Now, if you can't make the 66 links, I said I'd give you some other options. Write it on a piece of paper. Stick it by the door before you leave the house. Look at that sign. Put a sign up in the bathroom. Write it down on a piece of paper. Every day, write it on your hand. Although I don't recommend that, because ink and stuff can get into your body, or you can get it on your clothes. So maybe that's not a good idea. Don't listen to Mr. Ewing. Come up with a way. If you don't have the paper to do the 66 chains, come up with a way to get a sign. Put a Post-it by the door. A pad of Post-its would be great. Write it on each one of the Post-its, 66 of them, and each day pull one off. Come up with a way that will help you remember what that habit is, and do it every day. Remember, it takes 66 days to create a habit. Well, 18 to 200 days, but you know what? I think 66 days is doable. That's the first couple of months of school. I'll guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you, but I bet in the first couple weeks of doing this, even in the first week, you're going to see a change, because you have control. And as Luke Skywalker said, do not underestimate the power of you. Do not underestimate your power. Don't underestimate this giant, beautiful organ we have up in our head, the brain, because you have a beautiful brain and you have the control of your brain.